You're listening to the Touch 'em Up podcast. I'm your host, Double M, and on today's episode, we have episode 105, UFC 251 predictions. Welcome to Fight Island. With three championship fights to top the bill. Up first, for the vacant Bantamweight Championship of the world, you have the current top contender at 135 pounds, Petr No Mercy Yan, trying to get his first piece of UFC gold, going up against former two-time UFC featherweight champion, former WEC featherweight champion, the King of Rio, making his move down to 135 pounds for the second time in his career, Jose Aldo Jr. Then, in the co-main event of the evening for the featherweight championship at 145 pounds, you have the current reigning, defending 145-pound champion, standout of city kickboxing, Alexander the Great Volkanovski, trying to stake his claim and go 2-0 against the former featherweight champion, the reigning, defending former featherweight champion, Max Blessed Holloway. Then, to top the bill, it's bad blood personified. In the UFC's welterweight division for the 170-pound championship, you have the reigning, defending champion, the Nigerian Nightmare, Kamaru Usman, defending his crown against the BMF champion, Cuban Jesus, Street Jesus. Yes, that is Gamebred, Jorge Masvidal. So without any further ado, let's get this started and step into the ring. All right, guys, how's everybody doing tonight? We are back. You know, we had that little brief stint where it was a lot of interviews and everything like that was going down, and that was fun, and I'm hoping we get some more interviews soon in the future. I'm trying to work on a couple right now, but we had to get back to what brought us to the dance, baby. We had to get back to the UFC fight predictions. I would give you a little wrap-up on the last event, which was Dan Hooker versus Dustin Poirier, but if you want to hear more about that, I would definitely listen to the last two episodes of the podcast, which was interviews with Dustin Poirier's boxing coach and owner of the Boca Boxing District, Dia Davis, and then my interview right before that with coach at American Top Team, former longtime veteran of mixed martial arts and longtime friend and coach of Dustin Poirier, the Thug Jitsu master, Eve Edwards. So definitely go out of your way to check those out if you haven't already. They're decently long interviews, but I learned a lot. You guys will learn a lot, and they should be up on YouTube very shortly. So thank you guys, and let's get this started. So obviously, UFC 251, the first time the UFC is going to Fight Island on Yas Island in Abu Dhabi. Really just a stacked card from top to bottom. I think this is one of the best cards that the UFC has ever done in its entirety. I think UFC 100, UFC 217, and this. I think those are probably the best cards we've ever gotten in terms of competitive matchups, in terms of exciting fights, and in terms of just great fights from top to bottom. This main card is phenomenal, and there's not really much you could do to top it. We're going to start off with the fights I'm going to be breaking down for you. So we're going to do one fight from the prelims, which is the main event of the prelims, which is a light heavyweight fight between the number 7 ranked Volkan No Time Oezdemir, former title challenger, going up against the former Ryzen light heavyweight champion, Yuri Denisa Prochazka, who holds a record of 26 wins, 3 losses, and 1 draw. This is going to be Prochazka's first fight in the UFC, and Volkan Oezdemir is a very, very tough test for your first fight in the promotion. But being a former reigning, defending Ryzen light heavyweight champion, there's a lot for this guy to live up to, and it should be a very exciting matchup. Then when you get to the main card, we started off in the women's flyweight division with the number 14 ranked Amanda Rivas, who holds a record of 9 wins and 1 loss, going up against the returning 12-gauge Paige Van Zant, who holds a record of 8 wins and 4 losses. Then, following that, is a very, very highly anticipated rematch between two former strawweight women world champions. The number 1 ranked Jessica Bate Astaca. How do you say her nickname? Bate Estasca. Yeah, Bate Estasca. I believe it means pile driver in Portuguese. Andrade. So Jessica Andrade trying to go 2-0 against the former strawweight champion in and of herself, Thug Rose Namajunas, who holds a record of 8 wins and 4 losses. Then we get to the championship triple header. So you have for the vacant bantamweight championship of the world, the number 3 ranked No Mercy Petr Yan, going up against the number 11 ranked Jose Aldo. And then in the co-main event of the evening for the Featherweight Championship of the world, you have the reigning defending Featherweight champion Alexander the Great Volkanovski trying to go 2-0 against the former Featherweight champion, longtime reigning multiple title defenses, Max Blessed Holloway. And then in the main event of the evening, what was supposed to be Kamaru Usman versus Gilbert Burns, but Burns tested positive for COVID-19. They had to pull him from the fight, so that is not going to be happening. But it is in the main event for the Welterweight Championship, the fight that was originally supposed to take place on this card, and baby, we're getting it. The current reigning defending welterweight champion of the world, the Nigerian Nightmare, Kamaru Usman, who holds a record of 16 wins and 1 loss, going up against the number 3 ranked BMF champion, Street Jesus, Cuban Jesus, Jorge Gamebred Masvidal. Phenomenal card. So much to get into. This is definitely going to be a long episode. These fights are very, very close. I know some people are going to say that a couple of these fights are mismatches, but honestly, when you really think about it, these fights are extremely close. I've heard a lot of people crapping all over the Jan and Aldo fight for the vacant title. Was that the number 1 fight you could have made? No, I think Jan versus Moraes or Jan versus Sterling was probably the better fight to go with, but this is an exciting fight. It gives Aldo a chance to become a double champion in 2 separate weight classes, and it's really a legacy fight for Aldo and a chance for Jan to prove that he is one of, if not the best guy at 135 pounds. So I'm really excited. That fight and then the Rose Namajunas versus Andrade rematch are probably my 2 most look forward to fights on the card. But let's start it off with the prelims. Like we said, we're going to start it off in the light heavyweight division. The number 7 ranked Volkan No Time Oezdemir, who holds a record of 17 wins and 4 losses, going up against the former Ryzen light heavyweight champion making his debut in the UFC, Yuri Denisa Prochaska, who holds a record of 26 wins, 3 losses, and 1 draw. This is a good fight, and it's an exciting fight. And you know why? Because these guys fight very, very similar to each other. Volkan Oezdemir has extreme, very, very heavy power. If he connects on your chin with a left or a right hand, he could knock out just about anybody at 205 pounds. And he's made a lot of improvements. You know, he started off where he was just, balls to the wall. I'm coming for you. I'm going to take your head off right away. I'm not going to give you a chance to breathe. And that's how he got such quick knockouts against, I believe, did he knock out Alexei Oleinik? No, he's a heavyweight. Who's the guy he knocked out like right away? I can't think. Misha Serkinov? Yeah, I think that was it. So he knocked out Serkinov like right away in the beginning of their fight. He knocked out Jimmy Manua right away in their fight. He was going into the title fight with DC with just quick knockouts, just one after the other, after the other, after the other. And then against DC, he just kind of got out-wrestled, out-grappled, and eventually got TKO'd. And it's no shame. I figured that's probably what was going to happen in that fight, but he has made a lot of improvement. He has implemented the low kicks a lot more into his game, trying to chop the lead leg, chop the inside of the leg to try to slow down the opponent. He's works very good from the clinch up close against the fence. Like I said, really good power in his hands. And one thing that we've seen from Volkan Oezdemir lately that made him a little bit more successful is that he has learned to become more patient. He does throw a lot of power. He does throw some combinations, but he's learned to kind of let the fight come to him. He'll come in, pop, 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 and then he'll back up and try to reset, and then he'll come back in, pop, 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 and then he'll reset. He looked to implement a lot of wrestling against Anthony Smith, and eventually that ended up costing him. He was getting out-grappled by Volkan Oezdemir, but then eventually Smith, just with grit and determination, was able to sink those hooks in, get the back, take the neck, and get the rear naked choke finish. And that's really what catapulted him to that title shot against John Jones. Obviously, he came up short, but it is what it is. Volkan is very good with knees up the middle. That was one thing you saw in the fight against Alir Latifi that he implemented into his game, is when somebody tries to come in and close the distance on him, he'll come up the middle with that knee to either to the chin or to the chest or to the body, just to take that wind out of you and make you run into a target when you come into range. So you come into range, boom, knee to the body, just come in, and it's just going to take the wind out of you, and that's going to set up the power shot with the hands. He's more primarily a boxer. He doesn't throw a lot of high kicks or kicks to the body. His kicks and knees are mainly, kicks mainly are to the calf or to the inside of the leg. and then knees are to the body, and then he'll try to rough you up in the clinch. With Yuri Prochaska, now I haven't seen much of anything of him before I'm breaking down this fight, but I did watch some highlights, and these guys are very similar. Like I said, they're not extremely technical in their striking. They do tend to keep their hands pretty low and then come into range and pop, 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 and try to land power. Jiri has a lot of power as well. Jiri, I think it's Yuri. Yuri Prochaska has a lot of power in his shots. Very good from the clinch. Really good with knees to pull you into that tie clinch where he gets hold of the back of your neck. Knees to the body, knees up top to the head. Some elbows. He likes to strike off the break on clinches, so he'll like push you away, try to land that right hand, left hook. Good flying knees from both guys. Ozdemir has good knees, like I already explained, and Yuri Prochaska has good knees too. I think the real key in this fight is that although both guys do tend to keep their hands down pretty low and aren't very good defensively, I think that Yuri Prochaska is just a little bit cleaner with his strikes. He has his hands don't really come at a winding angle where it's wide shots. And what I say by wide shots is when you throw a straight shot down the middle, that's going to be less wind up. It's going to be harder for the opponent to see. When you wind up and throw hooks, it's easier for the opponent to roll and get on the inside, or easier for an opponent to roll, get to the outside and counter you. I think that Yuri Prochaska will throw those looping wide shots, but if he gets you hurt, he'll pick his shots and throw straight combinations, the 1-2, the 2-3, the 1-1-2, and he'll eventually just try to knock you out with that, and then he'll pour it on. His volume striking, I think, is going to be the key against a guy like Volkan Ozdemir. Now, when you look at the level of competition, Volkan Ozdemir has definitely fought the tougher competition in his career. I mean, he's fought obviously Daniel Cormier, Alexander Rakic, Anthony Smith, Alir Latifi, Jimmy Manua. He's fought the who's who of the UFC's light heavyweight division. Now, he's come up short in some of them, and he's won a couple of them as well. Prochaska, he hasn't fought in the UFC, and this is an extremely tough test, getting the number 7 ranked light heavyweight in your first fight in the UFC. Like I said, Ozdemir has made a lot of improvements in his striking and his defense and kind of playing it calm. But I'm honestly going to go with Yuri Prochaska here, and here's the reason why. It comes down to him being able to stay calm in a firefight. Yes, he will throw wind-up shots, but if he gets you hurt, he will kind of back off a little bit. He won't give you a lot of space to breathe, but he'll give himself enough space to throw his punches with full extension and try to just pop you, pop, 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 and that sets up the power to get the knockout. If Volkan gets hurt or gets pushed back or pushes the opponent back, he tends to throw wild hooks, pop, 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 and leaves his chin open and his chin exposed. Yuri does this as well. He does tend to leave his hands pretty low, but he likes to lower his level a little bit. He'll go low, fake low, come up high with flying knees or kicks, and I think that's going to be the key. I think the cleaner, crisper striking definitely goes to Yuri Prochaska here, and I think that's going to be the key. I think he's going to be able to land in between the punches of Volkan Ozdemir, in between those wide hooks and uppercuts and wide right hands, really telegraphed shots. He's going to be able to sneak those jabs in there, sneak in that 1-2. I think he's going to hurt Volkan. I don't know if he gets a finish. You know what? Yeah, I'll go with the finish. I'm going to go with the 3rd round TKO for Yuri Prochaska. And another thing is he has more experience in a 5-round fight because he is a former world champion. So I'm going to go with the upset here and pick the newcomer Yuri Prochaska to defeat Volkan No Time Ozdemir via a 3rd round TKO in his UFC debut. Okay, let's move to the main card. Up first in the women's flyweight division at 125 pounds, you have the number 14 ranked Amanda Ribas, who holds a record of 9 wins and 1 loss, going up against the former prospect, one of the most popular and polarizing girls in that women's division, 12-gauge Paige VanZant. This is a good fight. It's a tough fight for 12-gauge Paige, but it's also a decent step up in competition for Amanda Ribas, since Paige VanZant has fought the likes of Thug Rose Namajunas, fought Felice Herrig, fought some really good girls in that 100. I believe she fought Michelle Watterson as well. Amanda Ribas is coming off a fight against Mackenzie Dern, I believe, where she got the victory in a very close fight. But Amanda Ribas is kind of the new wave of the women's flyweight division. A lot of people are riding very high on her. They think she's going to definitely beat Paige VanZant, and they think that it's just a big mismatch for VanZant. Now, is it? Honestly, I could see why people think that. She's coming off, Amanda Ribas, by the way, is coming off of a win over Randa Marcos via decision, and then prior to that, beat Mackenzie Dern via decision. Prior to that, she defeated Emily Whitmire via submission in the second round. So she's good. She's good on the feet, but she's mainly a grappler. But she will throw strikes. She has good ability to pull away from shots. So if she goes 1-2, she'll kind of pull back and put some weight on that rear foot and just pull away from the shot as you throw it. So pop up and then pull back to avoid your shot and then come back with the counter. With Paige Van Zant, she is a decent grappler, but a lot of her success has come on the feet. When she fights a girl like a Thug Rose, like a Michelle Watterson, who has that very, very solid base in jiu-jitsu and wrestling, who's able to control the positions on the ground and land ground and pound, she has a lot of trouble. And Amanda Ribas is the girl who can definitely do that. On the feet, Paige Van Zant's going to have a little bit of an advantage in the showy type of strikes. You know, a lot of flying roundhouse kicks, two-touch roundhouse kicks like she landed on Beck Rawlings, flying kicks, 1-2, good striking overall. But I think that Amanda Ribas can definitely exploit that. Both girls really like to use that head and arm throw from the clinch where they get in close, grab the head and arm, and then do a hip toss and get you to the ground. Paige Van Zant does that in almost every one of her fights, and Amanda Ribas does it as well. But the difference is Amanda Ribas is better fundamentally and better technique-wise on the ground. She doesn't make that many mistakes. So if she gets on top of a girl like Paige Van Zant, I think she can exploit the defensive holes in the ground game of a girl like Paige Van Zant. Do I think Paige can catch her on the feet? Yes, because I think Paige Van Zant is a little bit more technical in the striking aspect, but Amanda Ribas is more technical on the ground. But I think that Amanda Ribas has a pace that she can put on Paige Van Zant, and then she'll set up entries for takedowns, get her on the ground, and eventually get in top position. I think if Amanda Ribas gets in top position or keeps Paige Van Zant in the guard, she can lock up a submission, whether it's an armbar, a rear naked choke. She gets the back. She's very good. So I give the advantage to Amanda Ribas. When it comes to picking a winner, I got to go with Amanda Ribas, but don't get it twisted. And don't think that I'm discounting Paige Van Zant. I'm not. We have not seen Van Zant in a really long time, so we don't know what to expect. She may have made, very big strides in her mixed martial arts career. Maybe she made a lot of strides in her footwork, in her stand-up game. She was on Dancing with the Stars. I know a lot of people are going to say, Dancing with the Stars, what does that have to do with a fight? It's going to aid in your footwork. It's going to make you be able to cut angles, move in and out, move side to side a lot better than before that show, because with dancing, it's all about foot positioning, moving around, and cutting angles and being able to cut angles and move in different directions on a dime. And, if you don't believe me, just look at a guy like Vasyl Lomachenko in boxing, who is extremely technical with his footwork and movement and ability to just turn opponents around into his punches. And the one reason he said that he's so good at that is because his father put him into traditional dance before he went into boxing to make sure that his footwork and his understanding of range and distance management was better. So if Van Zant can keep her at a distance at kicking range, I think she can definitely pick apart Amanda Ribas just by landing kicks, getting out, and keep moving. But I think Ribas' ground game is going to be too much for Van Zant. I think she's going to be able to land shots on the feet. I think she's going to time the entries of Van Zant and then shoot takedowns, get on top, get her back, land some good ground and pound, and get a submission. So I'm going to go with Amanda Ribas to get the win over 12-gauge Paige Van Zant via a third round. We'll go third round. Let's go second round. Second round rear naked choke finish for Amanda Ribas over Paige Van Zant. All right, now we get to the big fights. This fight could have been a 5-rounder. Because it's a rematch from UFC 237, where they formerly fought for the strawweight championship at 115 pounds. Thug Rose Namajunas came into that fight as the champion, coming off of 2 back-to-back wins over the former champion, the Boogie Woman. Boogie Woman is coming for you, Joanna Jędrzejczyk. 2 phenomenal performances, and she came in against Jessica Andrade. Andrade obviously lost the title to Weili Zhang, so whoever wins this fight, I think, is definitely in line to fight Weili when she returns to the octagon. And here's the thing about the first fight. Jessica Andrade won due to the miscalculation in the Kimura grip of Rose Namajunas. Because if you look, she won off the slam, obviously. She picked her up in the high crotch position and then put her on an angle and dropped her right on her head. The first time she tried to do that high crotch lift up against the fence, Rose Namajunas was able to get the Kimura grip. So she grabbed the one wrist with her hand, reached over Jessica Andrade's arm with the other hand, and grabbed her own wrist. By doing that, when you lift an opponent, it's going to make the lift extremely hard. And even if you do pick up the opponent, you're not going to be able to toss them because they have such a good grip on your arm. It's wherever you toss them, you're going to follow them because they're holding on to one of your limbs. But the problem was with the second toss that she tried to do, she had the Kimura grip originally, but she lost her grip when Andrade tried to pull her arm out and pull Rose forward off the cage, and she just ended up having a hold of the wrist but didn't have a grip around the other side of the arm. So that time when she picked up Andrade, she didn't really have full control of the elbow and the forearm and the wrist of Andrade. So when she picked her up, elevated her, and dropped her, she just fell down because her grip wasn't as strong as the first time when she tried to go for the Kimura grip. But prior to those grips, everybody, that was probably, honestly, the best that Rose Namajunas has ever looked. Her striking was on another level. And it could have been the opponent, because Andrade kind of reminds me of like a Vanderlei Silva in a female fighter. She's going to come forward. She's going to kind of try to move her head, close the distance, and come in with hooks, wild hooks and power shots. Just yeah, and try to catch you because she's so powerful and so strong in her punches that she knows if she connects on any of these girls' chins, she can put them to sleep. But against a technical assassin like my girl Thug Rose Namajunas, that wasn't working. She was moving forward, and eventually it did work because Thug Rose was constantly moving backwards and cutting angles and landing that check left hook. That check left hook was the key for Namajunas against Andrade in the first fight. Every time Andrade would try to come in with those hooks, Rose would just, boom, throw that check left hook and then cut the angle off to her left. So hook as she comes in, cut the angle off to the side of Jessica Andrade. She was basically playing bull and matador. She was faking in and out. Fake the step in, go back. Fake it, pop up. Fake a jab. Andrade is going to load up. Pop up, 1-2. Pop up, 1-2. As she comes forward, gets close to the fence, boom, check left hook. As she comes forward the other way, pop up, 1-2. Pop up, check left hook. Jab, check left hook, and then angle. She was basically just running in and getting pieced up the whole entire first round. And then the first round, when Andrade tried to do that high crotch lift the first time, she was able to adjust her hips and get into an armbar position. Now, a lot of people are saying it was a fluke. I'm not going to call it a fluke for Andrade to win because Rose was starting to slow down. And you're going to slow down when you're constantly moving backwards. When somebody's pushing forward and you constantly have to move backwards and cut angles and pop and get in and get out and move in and move out and cut angles and move off to the side, you're going to get tired because the person who moves forward is always going to be expending less energy than the person that's moving backwards. If you try to run backwards, you're going to get tired a lot quicker than you would if you try to run forwards. Try running a mile backwards, you're probably not going to make it. If you run a mile forwards, you're definitely going to be able to do it. So moving backwards, it's going to be harder to land shots on the opponent. But Rose had a good idea, had the right idea, moving backwards, getting that check left hook to get the angle, and then coming back in with the 1-2 as Andrade turned back into her. Now, what do I think the adjustments could be? What adjustments could be made for Rose when moving backwards? I think you have to look at the Weili Zhang fight. Because right away, when Andrade was able to push Weili up against the fence, she timed the wide hooks of Jessica Andrade, kind of framed off on her head with the lead hand, and then boom, fired that right hand. I think that's going to be the key if Namajunas is able, if Namajunas is, gets her back put up against the fence. She needs to stay off the fence. She cannot be there. The fence is the red zone in this fight. Andrade pushing Namajunas against the fence, no bueno. You cannot be there. You have to get off the fence. But if you want to play games, make sure you're not close enough to the fence and in close enough proximity that if she does push you back, you're going to run into the fence and kind of hit kind of hit the fence, that's going to be a problem. But if you get close enough to the fence, you need to frame off with that lead hand and pop her with that right hand. So fake a jab maybe, frame, pop the right hand, because she's going to try to go with the wide hooks. Either that or roll underneath the hook, step forward with that left foot, cut the angle off to your left, and get out of the way and get back to the center. But when it comes down to it, I think I'm going to go with Thug Rose in this fight 100%. I think she's made the necessary adjustments. She also has to look out for low kicks. Low kicks are definitely a big factor in this fight. I think that Andrade was able to land some good inside and outside low kicks on Namajunas, and the low kicks worked very well for Joanna in the second fight against Rose. But I think that Rose is going to be calm, cool, collected. I think she's going to keep her back off the fence. If she does get to the fence, I think maybe she'll jump guard, or maybe she jumps into like a guillotine, because it's not going to be as easy for Andrade to slam you if you jump guard. I don't think she wants to be on her back, but I don't think she's going to try to go for that Kimura grip, or at least try not to go for it in this fight, because it cost her the fight the last time. I think the 1-2 of Namajunas is going to catch Andrade like it did in the first fight. I honestly see it playing out very similar to the first matchup, but this time Rose finishing Andrade. So if I have to go with a final pick, I'm going to go with Thug Rose Namajunas to get the win via a second round TKO over Jessica Andrade. And then we get Wei Lee versus Thug Rose. All right, we're going to move to the title fights next. All right, let's talk about the feature fight of the evening for the vacant Bantamweight Championship of the world. You have the number 3 ranked No Mercy Petr Yan, the Siberian gangster, who holds a record of 14 wins and 1 loss, going up against the number 11 ranked Jose Aldo Jr., who holds a record of 28 wins and 6 defeats. This is going to be for the vacant Bantamweight title, like I said, and this is a phenomenal fight. Phenomenal fight. Now, is it the right fight to make? Was it the right fight to make at the current time? I don't believe so. I think that Yan and Aljamain, Yan and Sterling would have been a great fight. I think that's a fight we're definitely going to get down the line. Or Yan versus Moraes, because Yan and Moraes were supposed to fight on June 13th at UFC Kazakhstan. So since the fight was already booked, I don't see a reason why you wouldn't rebook it, but we don't know if maybe somebody has an injury, maybe somebody that was training with them had COVID-19. You know, we don't know. So we can't really say what if, ands, or buts. We're getting Yan versus Aldo. It's a phenomenal fight. The former featherweight champion moving down to 135 pounds for the second time in his career to try to become a 2-division double champion. And he's going up against probably the best striker at 135 pounds, the most technical guy, the most well-rounded fighter in that division, I believe, Petr No Mercy Yan. So Yan is 14-1 overall as a professional mixed martial artist, and Jose Aldo Jr. is 28-6. Let's break down some of the stats. When you look at the height, they're both the same height at 5'7". So 5'7". Reach, Jan's going to have a 3-inch reach disadvantage. So it's a 67-inch reach for Petr Yan and a 70-inch reach for the King of Rio, Jose Aldo. When it comes to leg reach, 38 inches for Yan and 40 inches for Aldo. That could play a big factor. I will talk about that in a minute. But who knows if Aldo's going to use that weapon, because he hasn't used them in a long time. When you break down wins, wins by knockout, 43% for Petr Yan and 61% of wins coming by way of KO for Jose Aldo Jr. Now, Aldo's had more fights, so that 61% is very impressive. He's had 34 fights in his career to Jan's 15 as a professional, but Yan is an unbelievable boxer. And before he went into mixed martial arts, he actually had a Master of Sports in boxing. And if you know what that is, I'm not 100% sure on like what a Master of Sports entails, but let's see, Master of Sports, Russia, boxing. We're going to look it up because I know it's very prestigious to have that honor. And so a Master of Sports is equal to a national champion. So nationally ranked fighter, first-class sportsman equal to a regional champion. So, yeah, I guess it's basically he's a national champion in boxing, and you could definitely see that in his career. I call him the Vasyl Lomachenko of mixed martial arts. If a guy like Lomachenko was to step into the cage, I think that it would be Petr Yan to be able to kick land some good high kicks, land some kicks to the body, land shots in the clinch, and then with the crisp hands, crisp boxing, I think it's phenomenal. Jose Aldo is also a phenomenal boxer as well, though. Very good head movement, very good ability to cut angles on opponents as they move forward and get off to the side and have them run into shots, and then good, very, very good left hook to the body, and then he'll throw that left hook to the body into the right low kick, left hook to the body, to the right uppercut, jab, right hand, left hook to the body. I think the left hook to the body could be a big weapon for Aldo against a guy like Jan. When you look at average fight time, it's very close. 11 minutes, 32 seconds for Petr Yan and 13 minutes and 14 seconds for Jose Aldo. Knockdown average per 15 minutes. This is where the big difference comes into play. And partially because Aldo doesn't have a lot of 15-minute fight experience. Almost all of his fights were 25-minute championship fights. Knockdown averages for Petr Yan, he lands almost 2 knockdowns per 15-minute fight at 1.52, and then Aldo is at a 0.44 for knockdown. So not even a 1 knockdown, but almost 2 knockdowns for Petr Yan. Significant strikes landed per minute. This is where a big difference comes into play. Yan lands 5.65 significant strikes per minute, and Aldo lands 3.47 significant strikes per minute. So that's almost a 2-strike advantage per minute for a guy like Petr Yan. So the activity is on the side of Yan, which is kind of impressive because he's such a patient pressure fighter, which I'll explain what that means in a second. Significant strikes percentage, they're very close. Yan lands 46% of his significant strikes per 15-minute fight, and Aldo lands 44% of his significant strikes. Strikes absorbed per minute, again, very, very close. 3.15 for Petr Yan to 3.18 for Jose Aldo Jr. And when it comes to defense, Yan is just a little bit slicker with the defense, with 67% of strikes being defended by Yan and 65% of strikes being defended by Jose Aldo. Now, when we get to the grappling, takedown averages per 15 minutes, Yan has a 1.73 takedown average per 15-minute fight, so he goes for almost 2 takedowns. Aldo doesn't go for takedowns, but he can wrestle if he needs to. He has a 0.64 takedown average per 15 minutes, so not even a full takedown, but if he needs to resort to wrestling, he can. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it against a guy like Yan because I think he's going to be extremely hard to take down. I think this fight takes place on the feet, in the clinch, and at range 100% of the time. Takedown defense, 87% of takedowns defended by Petr Yan and 91% of takedowns defended by Jose Aldo. Aldo's very, very hard to take down. That's why I don't think we're going to be seeing a lot of wrestling. Maybe Aldo tries to shoot a takedown to stifle some of the forward pressure of Yan, but I'm not 100% sure that's where it's going to end up going. I don't necessarily see that being a factor. I think this is definitely a striking match for the entirety of the contest. But yeah, let's get into breaking down the fight. So when you look at a guy like Aldo, he later on in his career he has resorted more to a boxing style of approach and less of a kickboxing style of approach. What I mean by this is Aldo used to use leg kicks phenomenally. He has the best low kick in all of mixed martial arts. I think him, Moraes, and Edson Barbosa have some of the best, if not the best, use of low kicks in mixed martial arts. I think Dan Hooker is definitely up there with the use of the low kicks, and so is Alexander Volkanovski. But I definitely think Aldo has some of the best and most powerful low kicks in the game. But he doesn't use them anymore because he said that he always used to break his foot. He throws so hard with so much power that he would end up breaking his foot or injuring it by landing the low kicks, and then that would compromise his movement. So he has learned to patent his style to more of a boxing approach. Now, against Yan, that is not a good idea. Here's the reason why. A lot of people are going to say, well, Aldo likes to throw shots and then roll underneath shots and use head movement to avoid the counters of the opponent. So he'll go jab, 1, 2, slip, slip, roll. Jab, 1, 2, slip, slip, roll. 1, 2, 3, roll, roll, slip, pull back, and use distance, and then try to come back in with counters. Aldo is very quick. He definitely was very quick in the fight against Marlon Moraes. The fight started out very shaky for him. You know, he got hit with that lead high kick, the switch kick, and got stumbled. And but then he was able to pressure pressure Moraes. Moraes was really caving under that pressure. He was moving forward. He was able to push him back, and then he would go one, leap in with that 2, 1, 2. He would counter the jab, pull, and counter with the cross. So as he threw the jab, he would pull his head back, put the weight on the rear foot, and then counter with that right hand. That's a very, very solid weapon from Aldo. That pull counter right hand, he used it against Frankie Edgar. He used it in the fight against Moraes. He used it against Moicano. And then if he lands that right hand, look for him to dip off to the left and throw that left hook to the body. He will mix it up in his approach to setting up those hooks and uppercuts. He'll go one slip, hook to the body, or he'll go one slip, uppercut. But he makes the hook to the body and the uppercut on that same side look extremely similar, so the opponent doesn't know if it's going to the body or to the head. The uppercut worked very well against Max Holloway, even though he lost both of those fights. His speed in the beginning of that fight and then the landing of the uppercut, or he'll fake the level change and go with an uppercut, kind of like what Chad Mendes did when they fought back in the day. Now, against a guy like Jan, what's the key for Jan? The key for Jan is using fakes and feints. Here's why. Look at the fight with Aldo and Volkanovski. What was the key for Volkanovski winning that fight? A lot of people are going to say the clinch. Yes, that is true, but it was also the fakes. He would step in, he would fake the right hand, kind of lean forward and touch with it, and this would get Aldo to kind of flinch, and then he could land his shots. He would step forward, switch stance, land some good strikes. Stance switches and fakes and feints are going to be the key for Petr Yan, and striking off the break in the clinch. Here's the key, really. For Aldo, I think he has to go back to his low kicks. We haven't seen him a lot, so I'm not expecting him to use them, but I would love to see Aldo resort back to that jab, low kick. 1, 2, hook to the body, right low kick. 1, 2, low kick. Because Jan does use footwork and movement, but he mainly moves on a linear forward pattern, forward and back, forward and back. If he's going to cut an angle, it's usually when he goes one, cross, step forward into southpaw, throw the straight left, or if the opponent is using that lead hand frame like Jimmy Rivera did to move along and cut an angle on Jan, he'll hook that straight hand around so it catches the opponent as they move off, because they think the punch is coming straight, so they'll angle off and go that opposite way to circle away from it, and they'll end up running into the hook because it's a wider shot. It's going to catch you on the exit. Those are going to be the keys for Jan. I think Aldo... I would give Aldo, I don't know. The speed advantage is really going to be a difficult thing for me to come to, like who has the speed advantage. I think Jan is quicker in terms of combination striking, but I think hand-wise and hand speed-wise, I think Aldo might be just a smidge quicker. That could be a problem, but I don't think so because of the use of fakes and feints. When you use fakes and get the opponent to think something's coming so they flinch for a second, and then you go pop, 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 or you make them flinch, switch stance, pop, switch stance, pop, 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 pop. That's going to make their speed slow down because they're not going to be ready for you to, they're not going to be ready to throw and counter off the shot. For Aldo, I think go to the body of Petr Yan. I think that's going to be a key, but you have to be careful because if you enter into even close proximity to a clinch position, if you go for an overhook or you get close to Yan, he'll go 1, 2, and then he'll step forward and try to get an underhook on the far side to kind of catch you as you move in, and then he'll move into the clinch, land some shots, and then strike on the exit from the clinch as well. So striking on the exits from the clinch, like he did to Uriah Faber, where he landed, he would get in the clinch, have the overhook and then the control on the head on the other side. He'd kick the inside of the leg, get him to move that one way, break that one way, pop, 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 land a punch combo. He would frame off the head and land a lead side, an elbow, a same side elbow with that frame. So frame, elbow, frame, elbow. He's very good and he's very tricky in his setups. And that's really what I think the key is going to be. I don't think we're going to see a lot of wrestling. I think Jan might try to go for that backside trip takedown from a clinch position, but I don't think that's going to be the key. And the fact that this is a 5-round fight, that's another interesting factor. We haven't seen Petr Yan in a 5-round fight before, so we don't know what he's going to look like when it comes to a 5-round contest. I think he's going to be able to pick it up, but I honestly don't see it going 5 rounds. I think the first 2 rounds are going to be extremely competitive. I think Aldo's going to try to pull and counter a lot of the shots of Jan. But the problem with countering a guy like Jan is you might counter him, but he has 3 or 4 counters for your one counter. You might counter and throw a right hand. He might go 1-2, switch southpaw, double jab, straight left, hook on that same side, go back to orthodox, and then throw the right hand. Or he might go 1-2, kick to the body, switch stance, kick to the body on the other side. He might go knee up the middle. I think knees from Aldo could be a factor because Jan does tend to keep his hands pretty high and kind of keep like a lowered stance. But I think the forward pressure and the calmness while Jan pushes forward, he's so calm and so patient. I think that's going to get to Aldo. It's going to get him to overreact on the feints. He's going to end up getting hit with shots he doesn't want to get hit with, which is going to make him overreact and try to counter, and then he's going to get hit with counter shots and eventually get finished. So I'm going to go with Petr Yan to defeat Jose Aldo Jr. to become the new 135-pound bantamweight champion, and we're going to go with a third-round knockout. I think he's going to catch him on the feet and drop him and finish him. So, yeah, Petr Yan to get the win via a third-round knockout. All right, let's get to the co-main event of the evening for the UFC's 145-pound featherweight championship of the world. You have the reigning defending champion fighting out of City Kickboxing in Auckland, New Zealand, and Freestyle Fighting Gym, Alexander the Great Volkanovski, who holds a professional record of 21 wins and 1 defeat, going up against the former featherweight champion, former reigning defending featherweight champion, might I add, the number 1 ranked Max Blessed Holloway, who holds a record of 21 wins and 5 defeats. I'm extremely, extremely excited for this rematch. I think that the first fight was phenomenal, but here's the thing. A lot of people I heard say that fight was close. I know Max thought that the fight was close. He thought he definitely won the fight. I had it, if not 5-0, I had it 4-1 for Volkanovski. He basically shut down the entire game of Max Holloway in their fight. But we're going to get to that in a second. Let's just look at the stats very quickly. When it comes to the stats, when it comes to the height, it's 5'6" for Alexander Volkanovski to 5'11" for Holloway. So Holloway's going to have a 5-inch height advantage. But when it comes to the reach, Volkanovski actually has a 2.5-inch reach advantage, even though he's shorter, which is kind of crazy. Volkanovski has a 71.5-inch reach to a 69-inch reach for Max Blessed Holloway. When it comes to leg reach, this is where I think Holloway can use what he can use to his advantage. 36 inches for Alexander Volkanovski to 42 inches for Max Holloway. So he has a 6-inch advantage when it comes to leg reach. So that means that he can get out of the way and move back quicker because of his how long his legs are, and he can land kicks and knees from a farther range than could Volkanovski, but we already knew that. When it comes to significant strikes, landed 6.15 land for the champion Volkanovski to 6.66 landed per minute for the former champion Max Blessed Holloway. Significant strikes percentage, 57% accuracy rate for Alexander Volkanovski to a 44% accuracy rate for Max Blessed Holloway. So that is a big, big difference in the accuracy. He's very good, very clean, very technical with his strikes, sets up everything. You saw it in the first fight against Max. Absorbed per minute, Volkanovski absorbs 3.14 strikes a minute to 4.45 for Max Holloway. So it's almost that Holloway absorbs 2 more strikes almost per minute than does Volkanovski. More like 1.5 strikes, but we'll just count it as 2 because there's no really half strikes in combat sports. When it comes to defense, 59% for Alexander Volkanovski to 62% defense rate for strikes for Max Blessed Holloway. Now, when you look at the grappling exchanges, the takedown average per a 15-minute fight, Volkanovski scores over 2 takedowns per 15 minutes at 2.16, and Holloway doesn't go for takedowns really at all. He has a 0.24 takedown accuracy per 15 minutes. Takedown accuracy, 34% accuracy rate for Volkanovski to an 83% rate accuracy rate for Holloway. So Holloway's definitely more accurate when he goes for takedowns, but he doesn't do it that often, so the accuracy rate's probably going to be higher because he doesn't do it as much as does a Volkanovski. Takedown defense, Holloway, the former champion, has an advantage in that. 72% defense rate for Volkanovski to an 85% takedown defense rate for Max Holloway. Now let's look back at the first fight. Where did Volkanovski do well and where did Holloway do well? Well, when it comes to Volkanovski doing well in the fight, using fakes and feints and using low kicks and then countering Holloway on the counter was the key for Volkanovski. So he would move in, he would fake with his hands, fake, chop the low kick. 1-2, chop the low kick on the lead leg of Holloway. Then inside low kick, outside low kick, cut the angle. And then when Holloway tried to crowd Volkanovski to try to stop those low kicks and getting close, Volkanovski would lower his level, cover up like he normally does because he's a shorter fighter, so he has to get on the inside. He would cover up. He would throw that overhand right. He would cover up, go overhand right, step forward, throw that check left hook. He would go overhand right, step forward into southpaw, and then go overhand right over the top. So it was a cross, overhand right with the same hand, and step into southpaw and then go back to orthodox. Really everywhere Holloway tried to exploit the weaknesses and use his advantage, Volkanovski had an answer for everything that Holloway did. The low kicks made Holloway switch stance. Switching to southpaw proved to be a little problematic for Holloway. He did do pretty good with landing kicks and punches to the body. If I have one area of this fight where I think Holloway can pick it up, I think he can win the 4th and 5th rounds. A lot of people said, Volkanovski tampered off very, very highly in those 4th and 5th rounds. Yeah, he did, but he was so active and so ahead already. And he didn't really lose those rounds. Maybe he lost them on the cards, but he didn't get dominated in the 4th and 5th round. The kicks to the body were very good for Max Holloway. You know, the roundhouse kicks to the body and knees to the body, and then trying to go 1-1 and then throw a cross to the body. The body shots were a key for Holloway because Volkanovski tends to keep his hands pretty high when he's defending. So keep your hands high, guard the head, your body's open. They usually rip to the body. So that's going to be the key for Holloway. But honestly, when it comes down to it, I don't see the fight playing out much different in the rematch than it did in the first contest. I think that Volkanovski's still going to be able to land those low kicks. And the reason why is, yes, Holloway does have good movement and good footwork and good ability to manage range, but Volkanovski was able to use fakes and feints and stance switches, and he would touch the lead hand of Max Holloway. By touching the lead hand of the opponent, you're taking away one of their most important weapons, which is their jab. Holloway needs that jab to set up his volume striking. So by Volkanovski constantly touching that lead hand and then low kick, touch the lead hand, okay, right hand, left hook. Touch the lead hand, right hand, step forward into southpaw, throw the right hook. He was taking away the weapon that Holloway uses to set up his volume striking. And by taking that away, then using the low kicks, you're making and taking away another weapon of Holloway, which is being able to move in and out and use range and get in and out of range quickly with his feet and switch stances mid-combination. What's the key for Holloway? Like I said, work the body. What's the key for Volkanovski? Do more of what you did in the first fight, but try not to go extremely insane in the first 2 rounds. Maybe tamper off on the volume, but try to land a little bit more power in your shots to try to hurt Max Holloway. I definitely think that Volkanovski has the power to land and hurt Holloway and knock him out. Does Holloway have the power to knock out Volkanovski? Not with one shot, but if he's able to land volume, I think he can hit Volkanovski a lot and knock him out. However, I think Volkanovski's just on another level. I don't see a lot of areas where Holloway can win this fight. Because even if Volkanovski tires out and Holloway starts to pick up the pace, he's just going to try to run that knee tap takedowns, catch a single leg, push him up against the fence, and go into a clinch position. Knee the inside of the thigh, knee the body, break off the clinch, land a combination. Keep Holloway pushed up against that fence, kind of like he did to Mendez. I think he might initiate a little bit more grappling in this contest to try to tire out Max a little bit because he has such a big power advantage, and then break off on the clinch and try to land power to hurt Holloway. And that's really what I think the fight goes down to. If I'm going to make a pick for this fight, I think, like I said, I think it plays out very similar to the first fight. But I'm going to go with Alexander the Great Volkanovski to beat Max Holloway via a 4th round TKO. I think he lands a lot It's very similar to the first fight. I think he rips the inside and outside of those legs. I don't think Holloway's going to have an answer for the defense on the low kicks. The only thing I could see him doing is trying to switch stances constantly to stop the low kicks. But even if he switches, Volk's just going to go to the inside of that other leg. So outside on the left leg, if he switches to southpaw, he'll rip the inside of the leg. That's what he did in the first fight. I think that he's going to look to land a little bit more power. I think he's going to step in and land that overhand right on Holloway as Holloway tries to move away. I think it's going to hurt him. I think Volk's going to try to rip the body and then come up top, kind of like how he finished Chad Mendes. But yeah, I'm going to go with a 4th round TKO for Alexander the Great Volkanovski to retain his featherweight championship against Max Blessed Holloway. And then for the main event of the evening, what was supposed to be the Nigerian Nightmare Kamaru Usman versus Gilbert Burns. Now we get the fight that we always wanted. The fight that was originally supposed to take place on Fight Island for this card. For the welterweight championship of the world, you have the champion, the Nigerian Nightmare, Kamaru Usman, who holds a record of 16 wins and 1 loss, going up against the number 3 ranked BMF champion, Street Jesus, Cuban Jesus, Jorge Gamebred Masvidal, who holds a record of 35 wins and 13 losses. A lot of people are going to say Masvidal's a journeyman. He's lost. That's one of the arguments that Kamaru Usman uses against a guy like Masvidal. You're a journeyman. Sure, but he's coming off 3 back-to-back wins. Beat Darren Till, beat Ben Askren, beat Nate Diaz. Now, Kamaru Usman has not lost in the UFC. He's beat guys like Emil Meek. He's beat Damian Maia. He's beat Rafael Dos Anjos. He's beat Tyron Woodley. He's beat Colby Covington. He's beat the best of the best at 170 pounds. But here's the thing. People are saying, that Jorge's coming into this fight on 6 days' notice. He's not ready. He's not in shape. He might have to cut weight, but a lot of people normally have to cut weight. And he was getting ready for this fight. He was getting ready for this fight until like maybe 2 months ago when they finally said they were going to give the fight to Gilbert Burns. He was getting ready. He was training this whole time, getting his game together to fight this exact opponent. This fight was supposed to happen. He was getting ready for Kamaru, and it's not happening. It wasn't happening, so he shifted his focus to obviously fighting Gilbert Burns. But Masvidal has been training. He's been getting ready. He's been working his wrestling with some of the best guys in the world. The guy's name escapes me, but they brought in somebody specific just to work on the takedown defense and the wrestling of Jorge. Now, do I think that Kamaru Usman has a wrestling advantage? Abso-freaking-lutely. There's no way that Jorge is going to be able to out-wrestle Usman. Masvidal is not going to be able to out-wrestle Usman. But on the feet, even though Usman is working with Trevor Whitman, he did move to work with Trevor Whitman for this camp and, build up and make sure that his striking was at another level. So I think we're going to see a little bit cleaner of striking from Usman. But Usman training to fight Burns and now having to fight Usman, I think that's a bigger change for Usman than it is for Masvidal. Masvidal always knew that he was going to fight a wrestler, whether it was Colby, whether it was Usman. He was going to be fighting a wrestler more than likely next. And he was getting ready for Usman, so he was working his takedown defense. He was working his clinch escapes. He's working his game in the clinch. On the ground, like I said, it's definitely a fight that Usman is going to have an advantage in. On the feet, it's definitely a fight that Gamebred has the advantage in. But here's the one thing that let's look at the stats first before we break it down, completely. Height, 6 foot for Kamaru Usman to 5'11 for Masvidal. Usman has a 2-inch reach advantage over Masvidal, 76 inches to 74. Leg reach, he has a 1.5-inch leg reach advantage in the legs. So with the kicking game for Usman to 39.5 inches for Masvidal. 40% of his wins come by way of knockout, does Usman, and 44% of the wins coming by way of KO for Gamebred. Average fight time, this is where the big difference is. Usman has 16 minutes and 40 seconds to 12 minutes and 58 seconds for Gamebred. And you're going to say, well, Usman fights for championship fights and fights 5-rounders. Yeah, I guess. Never mind. I was going to say a point, but he has fought a lot of 5-rounders in his career, but he normally goes to decision. He finished... I said a lot in this one. Sorry, guys. We've been talking for a while. Usman goes to decision a lot because he's more of a wrestler. Masvidal has gone to decision in the past, but now he's looking to finish you. He's looking to put the hurt on you. He's looking to send you to the shadow realm that he likes to call it, and he's looking to beat your ass. That's what Masvidal is looking to do. He's looking to put you out. Significant strikes landed per minute, 4.6 land for the Nigerian Nightmare. Kamaru Usman to 4.11 for Masvidal. Significant strikes percentage, 52% accuracy rate for Usman to 48% for Gamebred Jorge Masvidal. Absorbed per minute, Usman doesn't take as many shots, 2.17 for Usman to 4.18 absorbed per minute for Gamebred. And defense on the feet, 60% of strikes defended by Usman to 67% defense rate for Masvidal. That is one thing people don't understand, is even if they throw combination punches at Masvidal, he's very good at moving his head out of the way, at being able to control range, being able to slip in the middle of chaotic combinations to get away from the opponent. He's very patient, very technical, very crisp on the feet, and he's good at defending takedowns, and he's no slouch on the ground. He doesn't want to end up on his back, but I do think that if Usman takes Masvidal down, he will be able to hip escape, shrimp, and find his way back up against the fence. He'll probably get taken down again. That's an area he doesn't want to he doesn't want to get into the wrestling exchanges with Usman. But here's the thing. A lot of Usman's takedowns attempts come from the clinch position, whether it's an over-under, whether he shoots a single leg, then transitions to a clinch, works him up against the fence, then transitions to a double leg and goes for a takedown. Maybe he lifts up the leg, picks up the leg like a high crotch single leg and throws the opponent down to the ground and then gets position on the ground. A lot of his takedowns come from the clinch, body locks, over-unders, double unders, single collar clinches where he can land shots and then shoot takedowns. Gamebred is extremely dangerous in the clinch positions. Now, don't expect Masvidal to shoot a takedown on Usman. That's a terrible idea. But I could see him faking a takedown, getting Usman to bite on the fake takedown attempt, and then maybe coming up with a knee. Maybe faking a takedown and then going with that kick to the body. The most underrated aspects of Jorge Masvidal's game are his kicks to the body when an opponent's in a southpaw stance, his leg kicks, and his elbows and punches from the clinch, whether he's getting backed up or moving forward. He's very good in those clinches and very good at catching kicks. When you look at Usman, he's got good striking. His striking has definitely developed. He's got a good jab, a good 1-2. Against Colby, he was obviously fighting a southpaw, so he used that left hook to step to the outside of the lead leg of Colby and then throw that right hand down the center to expose the chin. That 1-2 was the best weapon he used against Colby Covington, and the shots to the body. He was able to cut angles, rip uppercuts to the body, cut an angle, throw a right hand to the body, those front kicks up the middle. And those were probably his best weapons. And that's what you see from a guy like Usman. Now, let's talk about Masvidal again for a second. The one area that I see Kamaru Usman having trouble, has had trouble with in his career, is multiple strike combinations. He's good at defending combinations when you throw maybe 1 or 2 strikes in him. Maybe you go 1-2, he can defend, get out of the way. 1-2, he can defend, get out of the way. He doesn't really move his head to slip punches. He more tries to pull back and control the range, or he'll just block and cover up. Against Colby Covington, this was a big problem for Usman. A huge problem, because that's when he got hurt. When Colby went 1, 2, 3, body kick, 2, 3. He was able to defend the first 2, but the 3, 4, and 5 hit him and hurt him. And they landed. And that's when Usman got stumbled and got hurt, was that overhand left, that right hook to the overhand left straight to the overhand right hook. That's when he got hurt, because he uses that high guard. So the hooks around the side were able to penetrate that defense and hurt Usman. Now, let's talk about the kicks for Masvidal. Like we said, he likes to use kicks when an opponent goes in a southpaw stance. Usman primarily fights in orthodox, but he does like to switch stances into southpaw. Look for the immediate right kick to the body if Usman switches to southpaw. When you see Usman's right foot step forward, he's going to get blasted with kicks to the body. Now, of course, Masvidal is going to be careful and wary to throw those body kicks, because Usman's going to try to catch the kick, hike it up, shoot a double leg, catch the kick, run him to the fence, work his takedowns off the fence. But even in the clinch, when Masvidal's back is against the fence, he's good at elbows. He's good at uppercuts. He's good at landing kicks on the break and knees on the break. Good at landing shots to the body. I thought there's just so many areas where this fight it can be competitive, and I really don't like how many people are discounting Masvidal. He has been training. He has been getting ready. Don't get it twisted. This is a tough fight for him, but it's an equally tough fight for for Masvidal. I think that Masvidal has more weapons and more creativity than does a guy like Usman. Usman's striking is great. His wrestling, world-class wrestling. He's going to look to wrestle in this fight. I don't think he's going to look to stand and strike with Usman or with Masvidal, but he's going to have to set up his takedown attempts very carefully because we saw what happened to Askren. If Usman comes out and immediately tries to lower his level and shoot a takedown, he could get met with a flying knee, and we could have an Askren fight all over again. But when it comes down to it, I'm going to pick Masvidal to become the new welterweight champion. I think Masvidal is going to catch Usman in the clinch. I think he's going to catch him slipping in the clinch. He's going to be not as defensively responsible when they get in close, and that's when Masvidal is going to hurt him with elbows, with uppercuts, with overhands and uppercuts from the clinch. That's going to hurt him against a guy like Masvidal. He's going to back up, probably go to shoot a takedown, and Masvidal is just going to unload on him, catch him, and knock him out. I'm going to go with Jorge Gamebred Masvidal, the knockout Kamaru to become the new welterweight champion of the world by defeating Kamaru Usman via a third-round knockout. Like I said, tough fight for both guys, but a lot of people are discounting Usman or are discounting Masvidal. Like I said, we might get a 25-minute wrestle fest where he just takes him down over and over again and controls him on the ground, but I just think that Masvidal is going to pull this off. I think he's been getting ready. I think that people are sleeping on how long Masvidal has been getting ready for this specific opponent. Kamaru as well. Usman's been getting ready for Masvidal too. But the change in opponent from Burns to Masvidal is a big, big change when it comes to the striking aspect. And yeah, I think that Masvidal becomes the new champion. So that's it, guys. Thank you guys for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed. I see my audience has been jumping up, so thank you again for everybody who's been tuning into the podcast. I am going to have the best fights to make for 135, 45, 55, 170, 185 coming up next. We're going to be doing that probably on the next episode of the podcast. Look out for more interviews. Leave reviews on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Anchor, anywhere you can leave a review for my podcast. Do it. The more reviews we get, the more eyes we get. And that's all she wrote. Thank you guys so much. If you'd like to donate to the podcast, you can become a Patreon. Well, it's not a Patreon, but you can be a supportive listener and pay a monthly fee. Thank you guys. I would appreciate it, but I'm not asking you to do it. You listening and you helping me with this podcast is definitely enough. Thank you guys. This has been my UFC 251 Usman versus Masvidal predictions. And I'm your host, Double M, and I'm out. Welcome to Fight Island, baby.